Greetings, Dayo Dayo, Gemba Gemba, Hotepu Hotepu, Ateke, Bayede Bayede. Depending on where you are, I greet you. Nusiemi Betoabu Mbote, Bana Bayisolere, Molweri Abantwana Abangoni, Morega Siana Siangai, Mpo Salama Watoto wa Mungu. Yes, depending on where you are, sure as the light of day, the day has dawned upon us, and with us is none other than director, producer, extraordinaire, Gregory Molale. Now, my viewers, I have, before I even hand it to him, listen, pay attention, learn something. My brother, greet your people.
Hi, my dear sir. How are you, Bantu? And yes, thank you for having me, and a good evening to your audiences as well. Thank you for hosting us. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you for honoring the call, my brother. Now, before we even get to the language of your soul, let us know the origins of your soul. Who is Gregory Molale? Where was he born? Or did he descend from the skies as a savior of the new people? My brother.
Yes. Oh, yes. Gregory Molale is a South African young man. I was born in South Africa in a village in a province in South Africa called the Northwest Province. And that's how I grew up. And I think I've been pretty much having this great interest in stories, African stories, from probably when I was very young, I think primary age, when I was at primary school. And I really then pursued storytelling as something that I was finding fulfilling, as something central to my purpose. And yes, I can say today I'm someone who is trying to master the art of filmmaking and storytelling. So Gregory Molale is a student of storytelling and filmmaking.
You see, my people, the great ones are always humble. They don't like speaking much about themselves, but we'll dig and pry open because this is the tree with the fruits and we must shake it. So Gregory Molale grows up. He discovers he's a student of art. Where does he decide that this is my motherland? Something is happening in my motherland. And I want to use my gift. I want to use my art to communicate that. I know you're anxious to speak about the movie. It's a big thing for us. We are anticipating. I'm here in the Lakeside City, my brother, waiting to watch that movie. So take us through that transition, from a young boy and being a voice of Africa, because that is what I can call you, a voice of Africa, a voice for the voiceless. Bayete.
Yes, thank you, sir. It's funny because growing up, I'm sure it's the same experience on your side also. A lot of literature or media that we're exposed to was Western media. So I was exposed to, my mother's books and the stuff we're hearing on TV and radio was America, BBC and whatnot. And only when post 1994, when South Africa got its freedom and I became a youth, in my 20s, there was this big wave in South Africa where young people were really trying to redefine what it means to be African. And we were obsessed about going back to our roots and to try to see Africa through a lens that is not a Western lens, to see Africa and to assess our history, our heritage in our own, in our own value system, because we've been forced to see Africa and ascribe its value through a value system that is not inherently us. So that was in 2007 or so. And the product of that shift was me doing a television reality show that was called Ziyawala Embrace the Motherland. it was a show where we really gave young people a platform to use the arts to express and put forth what does it mean to be a decolonized African. And I think since then, it's been a journey for me as a young person who is trying to define for myself and my children what does it mean to be African in a global world. It's been a journey of discovery, of digging deeper, because more often than not, we have been led to think our culture, or rather our history, begins from colonization. We don't have that rich oral history of how we used to live our life and the great civilizations that we were before colonization. So I went deep into that, and really that from that, the central purpose of my life was to bring forth stories that move me and put them across in a way that hopefully they will move my audiences. Stories that really address those damaging narratives that we've heard about Africa. And secondly, stories that showcase the greatness of being African, our storied history and our achievements that one seldom see in books and in cinema, you know. And yeah, it's been a journey, and this forum, Language of My Soul, is one of the first few ones, one of the first products of such a journey. Yes.
Bayete. Now, you become a revolutionist, and the script is there. You are shooting the movie, but you've not started shooting. What goes through your mind at that particular moment, before even the first scene, before even the first camera roll? What is going through your mind at this particular moment?
Wow. You know, with Language of My Soul, I met Omar Katrina in 2018, and already I was fascinated by the story of this great African elder who, without the ability to read and write, who was told that she is subhuman, is now dedicated and confident that she can revive and preserve a heritage of humanity, because her language is humanity's heritage. That fascinated me as to how is it even possible to take such a big storied life and commit it to film? Do I have the requisite talents, the requisite experience, or am I gonna bite more than I could chew? So it was really something that I approached with a sense of purpose and a sense of I'm doing something bigger than me. And as you can imagine, you read about her, but when I went deep into research, talking to the elders about what exactly results in a language becoming extinct, I soon realized that this story is not something that one can tell through the normal way. You know how one would normally see an African documentary where there are experts, outside voices saying, this is what happened, this is what these people went through. I had to then I saw that, look, this story requires that the people, the elders who lived through these experiences, put it forth. And before writing, my thing was like, I'm really just a vessel for them to express themselves. And yes, I think I tried to keep that through even during the filming and the edit, to really, you know, make sure that, because as you would see once you watch the film, it's a film loaded with heated political, ideological, and current issues that is easy for a creative to feel like, okay, I must put forth, I must express my opinion or my point of view in this subject matter. But I could see already that, no, here, my point of view, yes, it's important. I can't help but not express myself, but it's secondary. It needs to be something on a secondary layer. And I must really be a vessel. The film rather must be a vessel to express the untold stories, to really commit to film the memories that were being erased of our people. And I think, yes, if the film does that, if the film ultimately gets a viewer to recognize that what Omar Katrina is doing is not only for her language, She's doing something that is for all our African languages. You and I, we are communicating in English now. We are not communicating in Kiswahili or in my Setswana, which means our children or our children's children might not even know our own languages, since, you know what I mean, for bread and butter, English and French and whatnot. As such, it's an attempt to say, dear Africans, let's value our languages. Let's make sure that as we preserve this new language, let's make sure that our languages don't come to the same.
A good point that you have brought, because FESTAC is a revival of something we almost saw die in Africa. So do you believe that the powers that be have failed the African people in the advocacy of our culture as Africans in general? I know without even if we have to poke the political eyes that we have to poke up, at the end of the day, there's a message that needs to be gotten out there. And if there's a platform where we don't miss words, it's this one. We speak the truth because we rightly divide the word of truth, my brother.
Yes. You know, yours is a very complex question. I think the whole interview can just be a discussion on that point you bring him forth. But two things that I think are central. Number one, if you look at how Africa got to be conquered, how Africa got to be colonized, the reason for conquering Africa was for its material resources. But the material resources couldn't be conquered or colonized by the imperialists if they hadn't won over our souls, our minds, our hearts. And how do you win over a people's soul, minds, and heart? You demean their culture, you demean their way of living, you demean how they see themselves. And only once you've done that can you then, you don't even need a gun. Then you can take everything. You can take the gold, you can take the diamonds, you can take their land and have them toil for you. So if we are to say, what did our leaders do? I think that the biggest problem that our leaders did was that they got so concerned or focused rather on, let's get the right to vote, let's get the franchise, let's also fight for economic participation. But if you take a man who is defeated in his heart, in his soul, in his mind, and you give him the franchise, you give him the material wealth, he can't do anything with it. And I think all over Africa, the neglect to revive our cultures, our language, is why we can't. It's in South Africa, it's been 30 years and there hasn't been a change. Some of us still feel like we are still under apartheid. We are not democratic because we are still have the same problems. And that is because we are still a defeated people psychologically. So we haven't done the psychological uprooting, you know, of colonization. So I think it's complex, but I think the inner work hasn't been done. And until it's done, whatever you try to change materially with policy won't come too much. And today, as a person who practicing the arts, I firmly understand, I can see the value of how the arts were used to propagandize, to tell bad stories about Africa. Yet today I think our leaders are not aware that they have the opportunity to use us, to use, film, books, to reverse the damage that has been done to an African soul. But there isn't enough investment in that. And I think perhaps we are talking to people who are also damaged, they haven't healed. And we're asking them to heal us when they're also patients or sickly.
Indeed. And wise words, my brother, because if we point one finger, we have 3 pointing at us. So if we are going to blame our leaders, we must also take responsibility as a collective, because does it mean that all of Africa has to convene in platforms like this or avenues like this in the name of celebrating culture? Why can it not be a daily routine? Why cannot be something that we do day, day out? You know, if we come as a collective and we say that this is our culture, we are not going to have it undermined or demeaned as we put it by the imperialists. Then I
Yes,
believe we can.
you've nailed it,
We
sir.
can do.
I think you've nailed it.
I was just
So,
regurgitating what you were saying. I'm reading from my notes. So the wisdom came from your ancestors. I am just the platform of which it is orated. So my
yeah.
brother, now to the creme to the pièce de la résistance, if we use that foreign language, but in the language of our people, to umkhonto wesizwe, the spear of this nation that has brought us, saving these people. Now, the language of my soul. Do not mince words. Take us through what to expect without giving us too much and without giving us too little. Too much
Yes.
too much in the sense of the content of the movie, but too little in the message that you're conveying with the movie. Bayeti.
Yeah. So Oma Katrina Iso is the last speaker of the Ngu language. The Ngu language is one of the world's oldest language. It's a language of the San people. I think history, archaeology, and science has confirmed that the San are the oldest, if not one of the oldest, or one of the oldest people of you know what I mean. We all owe our origin from them. So this is their language. It's been dated to be 25,000 years old. And you can see 25,000 years is a mighty long time. And the language today, as great as it is, as it carries history and indigenous knowledge, today there's only one speaker of the language. So this documentary, Language of My Soul, is really trying to answer the question, how does it happen that a language has one speaker? And that forces us to look at the history of how that language was destroyed, how a people faced cultural erasure in order for them to survive. They had to abandon their language and they had to abandon their identity. So Oma Katrina is one of those people who, when she was 17 years old, she had to hide the fact that she speaks Ngu because her people were being killed and they were being sold. They were killed and then their skulls were sold for racial science studies. Today, museums in Europe and in Africa still have skulls of the San people. So Oma Katrina was forced when she was 17 years old in 1950 to abandon her language. She spent 50 years hiding that she speaks this language, and only when South Africa got its freedom did she come out to say, I speak this language. But by then, there were only 20 people left who speak this language. And since then, in 1996, our government tried to preserve the language, but the efforts were not enough because in 2003, or was it 2003? A few years later, let's say 25 years from 1996, all the other 20 speakers were late, and it was only Oma Katrina left. And today, she is faced with the question, what will happen to this language of hers when she dies? So our documentary really looks at how does the language die and answers the question, forces Oma Katrina to look inside, to acknowledge things that she has to deal with.
Brother,
And answer
we might have lost you for a bit. Track back to where Katrina, after you had explained how she came out to speak after the end of apartheid, you were a bit on and
I was
off.
cut.
So Yes, kindly pick it up from there because that's where I
Oh,
see.
apologies. So yes, I was saying after 1996, that's when the other speakers, when everybody thought the language was extinct, that's when Omar Katrina and 19 other speakers were discovered. By then, already in 1971, people thought this language was extinct. So it was a glorious miracle when they were discovered in 1996. And we didn't do enough efforts as South Africans to preserve the language to such an extent that now Omar Katrina is the only one left, and the language is extremely endangered. And she's central to the preservation, the promotion, and the revival of it. So this documentary really is telling that story as to how, you know what I mean, how does a people become buried when they're still alive? How does a language become buried when it's still alive? And how do we go about reviving that so that my Setswana, your Kiswahili don't come across the same, you know, don't meet the same fate in the future.
Yes, and that is why we continue to, as much as we have a diversity, we have to understand it is this diversity that makes us Africa. And one without all, it's an ecosystem. Because today the new language is gone. Tomorrow the Xhosa is gone. Tomorrow nobody else is speaking Zulu. Nobody is speaking the Kikuyu, the language of my ancestors. Nobody is speaking what is nobody is speaking I'm sorry, the language in Nigeria, but it evaporated. But I'm sure the viewers get what we are trying to put across. So it's very important for us to celebrate not just the culture you come from, but the culture of Africa as a collective, you know. To do checks and balances. Are these people being marginalized? Because, brother, I don't think the melanin on this skin is any different from the melanin on your skin. And these borders have not existed prior to 1884. So it's quite commendable what you have done with this, and you have etched your place in history. You have etched your place in history because this is a legacy. Even if nobody wants to remember the new people, you know, the archives are there. We live in a technological age, so their history will not just be erased like that. The language will not be erased. So this movie is premiering, my viewers. This movie is premiering at FESTAC 2024 in the lakeside city of Kisumu, the city I am broadcasting this live from. The city, our hero, let's call him our hero, because there's nothing short. Those who preserve the legacy of the ancestors of Africa are nothing short of heroes. Our hero will be premiering that movie here at the Mega Cinema. And Wanduri Education TV, go to www.ticketstarter.com. Get your tickets. And if you're watching this, there is a code just below me here. If you enter that code, because we do not want you to miss this movie, if you enter that code, you'll get a discount to come watch Language of My Soul for the first time, premiering anywhere in the world. It's premiering in Kisumu. My brother, tell them. Perhaps they think I'm joking. Tell them in a language.
Yes. Thank you, brother Bantu. Thank you so much. Yes.
They like to joke a lot.
Thank you so much. You know, it's an immense honor for us to have our movie premiere in Kenya, because ours is really to tell African stories and to be South Africans and take our movie and have it premiere in our brother country is an immense honor. That really speaks to the unity that we need and the the singularity of purpose that we really need to march on. And you see, this film, to me as a storyteller, I really, I am moved to tell stories that touch me in the same way that the stories that I love touch me. So I really hope it moves people the same way that my favorite stories move me. And secondly, the in as much as I want it to be a great story that's appreciated, we are doing this so that we mobilize a positive sentiment and we rally support around Omar Katrina's quest, which is the preservation of Ngqu. You know what I mean? And already Omar Katrina has worked enough with Puku Children's Literature Foundation to produce the first Ngqu book. And it's one of those things that I think we also must put out there, because it's the first book of the language, and every copy that is bought of the book, Omar Katrina gets proceed. The same with this movie. Every money that this movie generates, 60% of that goes towards preserving this language, goes towards helping Omar Katrina revive the language. So ours really is a twofold thing: to tell stories that move our audiences, that talk to what it means to be an African in today's time, but secondly, or most primary, to make sure that this here movie becomes a vehicle to a more serious cause, the preservation of a language that is our heritage, is the world's heritage, and most specifically, the new language is Africa's heritage. I'm saying this because you'd see in the form that this new gave birth to many languages. I think it's the Hadzabe in Angola. Their language originates from Ngqu, their culture and everything. The Xhosa, the Setswana, you know what I mean? There are many languages all over Africa that get their roots from Ngqu. Their words, some words are still the same. So it's an African heritage that needs to be preserved. And more than that, it's an experience that is transformative. I think after watching the movie, it will be, you know what I mean? What's the right word? I can't find the right word, but people will be moved enough to march on this African agenda of decolonization. Thank you, sir.
Bayete, Bayete, Bayete. And with those words you have heard, where to watch Language of My Soul at the FESTAC Festival. I will be there. In fact, I am just keeping the environment warm for my brother before he descends, and we can teach more about the new on the lakeside city of Kisumu. My brother, thank you for honoring the call. I know you're very busy with finalizing preparations and all that. See you here, not there. I'm here. I am in the lakeside, so see you here in a few days. Yes, we be FESTAC from the 25th of August to the 1st of September, happening in Kisumu. Until next time, see you here. The world is coming. What are you waiting for? Over and out. Dayo, dayo.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you to the viewers as
You
well.
too, my brother.
Lovely.